Okay, so for my first question, I did why did the Spanish, Dutch, French, and English treat Native people differently? I'm going to start with the Spanish. The Spanish treated Native people differently than other European colonizers primarily because of their focus on converting them to Catholicism and through missions. They utilized a labor system called encomienda, which exploited indigenous labor for personal gain and viewing Native populations as a source of tribute and manpower to further their colonial ambitions. This often led to harsh treatment and cultural disruption. This approach was significantly more exploitative than other European powers in some ways, although all colonial systems involve varying degrees of exploitation. Some of the ways the Spanish poorly treated the natives are conversion to Christianity, the encomienda system, gold and silver extraction, and social hierarchy. Conversion to Christianity. A major goal of Spanish colonization was to convert native people to Catholicism. This led to the establishment of missions where indigenous populations were forcibly assimilated into Spanish culture and religious practices. The colonists lied, saying they would pay the native people for their labor and convert them to Christianity. But in reality, the natives were either forced to accept Christianity or were given little or no religious instruction, really cruelly treated, or which was in effect reduced the natives to slaves. The goal was unsuccessful due to Spanish interaction with the Native Americans, typically leading to the spread of diseases, making the goal of converting them pointless. The encomienda system. This system granted Spanish colonists the right to extract labor from a designated group of native people in exchange for supposed protection and religious instruction. This often led to harsh working conditions and exploitation. The encomienda system was the first established in Spain following the Christian Reconquista. It was applied on a much larger scale during the Spanish colonization of the Americas and the Spanish East Indies. The reliance of Spain on the cooperation, tribute, and labor of Native Americans and Africans drastically shaped life in colonial Spanish America. Daily life was a complex combination of compliance and rebellion, order and disorder, affluence and poverty. Native Americans realized the benefits of accommodating the Spaniards to maintain traditional ways of life. The next one I did was gold and silver extraction. Spanish conquistadors were primarily motivated by the desire to find gold and silver. This led to the brutal subjugation of indigenous populations to access these resources. The Spanish forcefully took existing precious metals like jewelry and religious artifacts. Then they further exploited native laborers into mines to access larger deposits, often under brutal conditions through systems like encomienda, resulting in the widespread suffering and death among the indigenous people. The last one I did for the Spanish is social hierarchy. The Spanish established a rigid social hierarchy where they considered themselves superior to native people. This further contributed to their treatment as a subordinate class. The next one is the Dutch. The Dutch generally treated Native Americans differently than other European colonizers because their primary focus was on trade, particularly the fur trade. This led them to build alliances and foster relatively better relationships with native tribes through negotiation and land purchases. Unlike the Spanish, who often forced labor, or the English, who aimed for large-scale settlement and land acquisition, often causing conflict with the indigenous people. They were trade-focused, primarily sought to establish a lucrative fur trade with the natives, requiring cooperation and positive relations to secure a steady supply of pelts. Land acquisition through purchase. Unlike other colonizers, the Dutch often attempted to buy land from the natives through misunderstandings about land ownership could still lead to conflict. Alliances with powerful tribes. The Dutch formed alliances with powerful Native American groups like the Iroquois Confederacy, which helped them gain access to the fur trade networks. They also used intermarriages. Some Dutch settlers intermarried with native women, further strengthening their ties with local tribes. The French generally treated native people better than other European colonizers. Their colonial strategy heavily relied on building alliances and trade relationships with native tribes through mutual respect, often adopting aspects of native culture and intermarriage. For trade, the French company in North America was largely based on the fur trade, which required cooperation and alliances with native communities who controlled the fur supply. Cultural adaptation. French traders often learned native languages, customs, and participated in tribal ceremonies to foster stronger relationships. Intermarriage, a significant number of French colonists married native women, creating a mixed heritage population called the Métis. Missionary efforts. While the French did attempt to convert native people to Christianity through missionaries, their approach was generally less forceful than other European powers. The last one was the English. The English violently took control of the land and drove the natives away, forcing them to flee or perish. The success of English colonies depending on the exploitation of Native Americans who were forced off their lands. Religion was often used to justify the poor treatment of the natives. Both English economic system and religion led to Native American oppression. Tobacco was introduced to the colony of Jamestown, Virginia in 1612. Jamestown tobacco growers made a lot of money trading tobacco with the Europeans. Tobacco tears up land where it is grown, so the English needed more land to start growing more tobacco. The Powhatan tribe tried to repel the land grabbing English in 1622 and succeeded in killing a third of the settlement's inhabitants. The colonists, however, successfully put down a Native Americans' uprisings through the decade. They were forced to give up their land so the colonists could grow more tobacco. That is why, or the relationship between the Spanish, Dutch, and French, and English, and how they treated the natives differently.